Are you thirsty? Think I could spare a bit more.
Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'll be talking about Raised by Wolves Season 2, Episode 3, Good Creatures. Marcus is increasing the numbers for his new church, the hunt for number 7 continues, and Father's million-year-old android restoration project is really starting to get interesting. I'll be recapping everything that happened in the episode right after this quick spoiler warning. If you haven't watched Raised by Wolves Season 2, Episode 3, then this video won't be for you. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Episode 2 ended with a conflicted mother setting out to kill her natural child, the completely unnatural hybrid synth-organic flying serpent. The third episode continues there with her toting a harpoon gun heading towards the mountains. She comes across Father, who's on his bait mission with the Mithraic prisoners, and doesn't see the point of that, considering that she's told everyone that she'll kill the serpent herself. He argues that they should use everything at their disposal to keep their children safe, and they have a nice moment where he reassures her that she's good, that the children need her, and for whatever it's worth, so does he. In their tank, Marcus, Decima, and Tamerlane are also looking for the serpent. They start broadcasting a sound, which they think will attract it, and that brings them into contact with Father, who, when he hears that, activates the lures in the Mithraic's hats. They all come together, and we get a showdown between Marcus and Father, when the latter refuses to let the prisoners go, and says that he wouldn't hesitate to detonate them. While they're discussing that, they realize that Father would have been destroyed in the process of doing his job, of being the shepherd. The blast radius of the packs is bigger than the range of the staff, so whenever he did his job, he would also be destroyed. Eventually, Father decides to attack him, and you see that Marcus is deceptively powerful because of Mother's eyes. He's able to repel the shock from the staff, and then defeats Father by knocking him down, and then using that same electricity to disable him. The whole time we see that the veins on his face are pulsing, and that just reinforces that he is basically superhuman. He frees the Mithraics and offers to allow them to come to his new church, and they're all pretty much on board except for Lucius, who spits in his face and refuses to join them. Elsewhere, Campion and Paul get Vrille back to the cave. She tells them that it's a church after Paul notices the Sol Invictus symbol on the wall. As she's repairing her leg, she mentions that her mother broke her neck once, but when Campion asks more about that, she says that the story is restricted, and she makes a point that the original Vrille was sad, and that mimicking that strains her systems. Campion is very curious, and they seem fascinated with each other as they talk, which seems to set up a future relationship. On her journey, Mother comes across the cloaked trap that Cleaver and his men set up, and she trips it. Again, she tells them that they don't need to worry about it because she plans to kill number 7. She believes it's nesting on top of a nearby mountain and is planning on going up after it. When he checks with the Trust, it instructs Cleaver to go with her. They stop at a point for a conversation where she asks him why he doesn't get his eyes fixed. He wears glasses. And she says they belong to someone else, didn't they? Which feels like a point that might come back up later. He doesn't answer. He says that he knows better than to let a necromancer into his head. He points out that the Trust is different because it wasn't built as a weapon, and she reminds him that her primary role now is to be a caregiver. She makes her way up a sheer cliff and at the top finds number 7. She has her gun out, but as it approaches her and looks at her, she puts it down. A bird flies by, which she catches and then uses that as an offering, but finds out that number 7 isn't interested. She realizes it doesn't want blood and puts it together that it's an herbivore when she sees it eating the pumpkins. Back at their dwelling, Holly and Hunter bring Father back. The kids are initially upset that he was going to use the prisoners as bombs. They worry that he's looking at the Mithraics in a way that's different from other human beings. Tempest points out that he's just trying to protect them, and then she tells him that Mother was there, but she went to feed the serpent, and he gets worried immediately. At the same time, Paul and Campion return, and Paul tells them that they have to keep what they saw a secret because Marcus isn't hurting anyone, and someone needs to keep the religion alive. Father leaves to go to see what's going on with Mother for himself. You see that the colonists are upset because they haven't killed number 7 yet, and Father offers to do it because he feels like it's a threat to their children. Mother explains that she checked its scales, that it wasn't in the acid water, and that her instincts are telling her to protect it. Father points out that she was manipulated into carrying it, and that it's more akin to a parasite than a child, and Mother disagrees, saying that it's part of her. So they are at odds here, and she did promise on their partnership that she would take care of the situation, but now she thinks she can control it. This all angers Father, and he decides to go to his shed, where he realizes that he cares too much about her happiness. He can't go against her and kill number 7, and thinks to himself, love be the death of us all. Some of his fuel blood drips on the android skeleton, and he notices that something starts to happen. It starts to change. It's almost as if it's growing. And we hear him say to himself that it seems Mother isn't the only one capable of creating life. The ancient android is really starting to take shape later when you see it, after he goes through all the fuel blood he can find. Its face is protected by something that he can't remove, and inside the chest cavity you can clearly see that something's growing there. He goes out looking for more robot milk, and he's stopped when he tries to walk away with what he thinks is some, and Sue has to intervene to vouch for him with an atheist that tried to stop him. She asks him about the injuries that he got from Marcus, and also tells him that he's stolen fruit juice in reused containers, and tells him the good stuff is locked away in the tarantula. He goes and gets Hunter, and they go to try to obtain more. They end up meeting a new character named Nerva who trades things. She's someone who can find things in the colony, and she's not interested in trading him for relics, the metal cards, because she has a bunch of them and nobody wants them. She does have an offer though, where he can earn 5 gallons of fuel blood by fighting a scary looking industrial android named Billy. When he hears the terms of the fight, that he just has to knock Billy down before Billy knocks him down, he decides to go through with it, and it's pretty chaotic. He ends up winning in impressive fashion, and you see that he actually looks pleased to see that everyone's cheering for him at the end. In her new position, Sue is looking stressed. The Trust wants her to analyze the samples taken from the new animal, and she tries to resist this, but she's told that it's an organic synthetic hybrid with strong weaponization potential. She learns that it's still developing and that it's approximately 6 months old. With that, she starts to realize that Mother is its mother, and later she tries to ask Father if this is the case without actually saying it. You see that Campion is drawn to it. He tells Mother that he thinks it's in touch with something that she can't see, and this makes her worried that he's thinking too much like Paul. If he wants to lead the atheists, which is what she wants him to do, he's going to have to stop talking about soul. And as they're having their conversation, he asks her if all androids care how people look, which is obviously related to his attraction to Vrille. He also makes a comment about number 7 seeming jealous. The Trust wants to interview Paul again, and while they're talking, he shows him Mouse. The AI asks him if he still wants Marcus dead, saying that good things come to those who tell the truth, and he asks him if he's had any recent contact with him. He says no, which is technically not a lie since they were just at his cave. He did see him though when they were hiding, and still going there is what the Trust was asking him about. It ends up giving him Mouse back and tells him that they are mounting a search and destroy mission in 24 hours. There's a brief conversation between Campion and Father where he says that he can't understand how Marcus could defeat him in a fight. Father is nearly indestructible, and he explains to Campion that Marcus exhibited strength well beyond a normal human. As they're getting ready to do their chores, Paul says that he wants to warn Marcus about the search and destroy mission. They come clean to Holly about visiting the cave with Vrille, and together they all decide to ditch their chores and go back there. You see that things are going pretty good with Marcus's new family. Everyone seems happy there, and with everything that happened, they all seem to be of the mind that he is the actual prophet. Marcus and Decima are getting closer, we see them kiss, and then Vrille notices that Holly, Paul, and Campion are watching them from a distance. Marcus notices too, and he invites them in, and you kind of hear the sound that he emanates as a result of having Mother's eyes inside of him as the episode comes to an end. Things are starting to pick up here after the transition to this new location. I find Father's ancient android to be the most fascinating thing that's happening. Just him having a project is satisfying, and you have to wonder how Mother will react once he brings this thing back. I mentioned being intrigued by it being 1,000,000 years old in my last video, and here we see that the way it's reacting to fuel blood seems to set it apart from any of the other androids we've seen before. From the trailers, promotional materials, and casting announcements, we can put together that this is the character that's referred to as Grandmother, although we'll have to wait and see how she gets that name. It seems important that Father was able to collect all of her pieces in the same general area. In the official podcast, when he was asked if there was one thing he would plant in the minds of viewers, the showrunner Aaron Guzikowski said that he would just say pay attention and look around at everything in this environment. For where things end up, the kind of big twist of the season, he said, it's all right there for all to see. He also confirmed that there are seeds inside the dodecahedron that Paul found, which was next to a tree in what you could definitely describe as a garden. The tree of life, a serpent, the beginning of a new civilization. There's a lot of Genesis/Garden of Eden vibes in this tropical zone. I thought the Trust interviewing Paul felt pretty ominous, considering that it felt like a test. We know that he at least stretched the truth, if not flat out lied, and it seems pretty likely that the Trust will know that as well. And this AI doesn't seem like something that you would want to cross. It also stood out to me that when the bot was trying to get Sue to go to work, that it said that number 7 had great weaponization potential. The end made it seem that Paul is more attracted to Marcus than he wants to believe considering their history. This could be related to the necromancer eyes effect, which is another thing the showrunner confirmed is happening. He's somewhat superpowered after ingesting them, which was clear in his fight with Father, but it's also what's drawing people to him. Either way though, it makes sense that even though Paul might be conflicted about what happened to his real parents, he would still be more drawn to Marcus rather than the atheist colony. He's been cruel and unaccepting of Sue, but he views her as impure while he sees Marcus as essential to keeping the religion alive. And I do find it interesting that they both independently think that they're the one that the prophecy's about. It wasn't terribly surprising that Mother wasn't able to go through with killing number 7, and I guess you could see where she's coming from in thinking it's not a threat. Her internal conflict all checks out, and Father's concerns are valid at the same time. You can't help but notice that she's keeping their connection a secret. Sue is certainly picking up on it, and Campion was pretty close to putting the pieces together too. I'm guessing the fact that Campion and number 7 are actually brothers will be important, and the whole idea of Mother and Father keeping the secret might come back to bite them. It still seems like it could do a lot of damage if it had a reason to, whether it's a meat eater or not. And now I'm curious to see what it was that pulled the colonists into the acid ocean. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I think that's a good place to leave things. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode, what you think about the season so far, what theories do you have going on, and where do you think things are heading. There were a lot of little things in this episode that feel like they're gonna come back up later, like Cleaver's glasses, Lucius and Marcus's conflict, Father getting pumped up from the crowd cheering for him, Vrille's mention of Decima breaking her neck, and Marcus and everyone else thinking he's blessed by Soul when there's an explanation to what's really going on with him. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.